to assume that people are going to sign in. Oh, here come a couple more as we get going. So, couple of things. First of all, before we jump in, I sent out a schedule of people who are presenting live in class for the presentations. And what I also did for all of you, and it is down here, so way at the bottom, class resources in Moodle, there's a presentation schedule and there's a feedback form. So here is the presentation schedule for people who are presenting live in class, and I put everybody's topic down and then the dates that you're presenting in class, and then here are the people who are pre-recording it. So the reason that I put everybody's topic down is because you are responsible for watching 5 presentations, right? So here's your feedback form. You need to fill out 5 of these. It is up to you which 5 you want to watch. You are more than welcome to pick the ones that are of interest to you. That's why I listed everybody's topic, everybody's presentation. You're more than welcome to pick the ones that are interesting to you. So your name, presenter's name, 3 new things you learned during the presentation, most interesting piece, 1 question you still have, and then a specific piece of feedback either on presentation style or on mathematical content. This isn't supposed to be a huge big deal. I just want you to watch the presentation and not zone out during it. So I will get the pre-recorded presentations posted on Moodle. Remember, if you're going to pre-record it for me, that is due May 4th. So there's a spot to submit that on Moodle. You can decide if you want to sign in live to class or if you want to watch them. Either way, whatever you want. And then there is a spot under homework submissions to submit your feedback. So 1 file, please, 5 of these. That's why I put it up as a Word document instead of as a PDF, so that you can just fill that in, copy and paste, and do it 5 times. This is due the last day of the semester. So I expect you to have 5 presentations watched by the last day of the semester, Friday, May 8th at noon. The ones that are being presented live in class, I may or may not record with Zoom, we'll see. The ones that are being pre-recorded, I will get posted on Moodle. So that is where that stuff is set up for you. Anything for questions on that right now?
Yes. So I was looking at the email. It says in the email, my presentation is May 1st, but on that doc you just showed, it says on May 4th. Which one should we be trusting?
That's unfortunate.
Mine is the reverse too. The email says I'm May 4th, and on the doc I'm May 1st.
Okay, the email is probably right. Where's my sheet? Hang on here. Joshua, you are May 1st, and Sarah, you are May 4th. So did I reverse the email, or did I reverse
the email is right then.
The email's
right. The email's
okay.
right and the doc is wrong.
Okay, I will change the document and I will get a new one uploaded right after class. Thank you for pointing that out. Sorry about that. Okay, so change Word doc. My bad, sorry. Other questions? Thank you, sorry. Other questions on presentations, what I'm expecting for you, feedback, etc. Anything there? Okay, people who want to pre-record them, it is entirely up to you how you do it. So if you want to, I'm just gonna say it's entirely up to you how you wanna do it. Your call. If you wanna do a PowerPoint voiceover, go for it. If you wanna do anything else, go for it, however you want. But you need to submit a presentation to me through Moodle. Don't try to email it, the file is probably gonna be too big, by May 4th at noon. That's your due date for pre-recorded presentations. Okay. Anything else? Other questions on presentations, etc. before we get into new material? Going once, going twice?
Oh.
Yeah, Daniel.
If we record on Zoom and like share our screen, do you know if that would like work with the PowerPoint thing?
Yes.
Because that's what you do.
If you want to, if you want to do it that way, let me know, shoot me an email, and we can figure out a time for you to be on Zoom. I think I have to record it. I don't think that you guys, I think my settings are such that you can't, although I could adjust those if you want. So if you want to record it on Zoom, send me an email, shoot me an email, and we will get the logistics worked out. Yes.
Oh, okay, thanks. Although, well, I have my own account.
You can do it that way too. Yep, you can do it that way too if you want to. Yes.
Thanks, yeah.
Other questions on the presentations? Logistics of. Okay, Papers, I have not looked at yet. Those will get graded, but do not expect those back soonish, please. I will try. I will get there. They're not a soonish thing. They take a little while. I'll get them by the end of the semester. Anything else before we do content? Going once, going twice. Okay. Today then is message authentication codes. So remember we talked about hash functions last time. Today we are going to talk about message authentication codes. So there are some weaknesses of hash functions, and this is the first place that we want to go. And then we're going to talk about how we can potentially solve these weaknesses. So weaknesses of hash functions. Remember what the primary purpose of hash functions is. It is to ensure that the message or the file or the password or whatever else you're dealing with hasn't been accidentally changed in transit. The accidentally part is very, very important. We are not assuming that anything malicious is going on here. Hash functions guard against accidental changing. Hash functions do not guard against malicious changing. So this is important. This is very important because hash functions are subject to what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. And this is one of the weaknesses, primary weaknesses of hash functions. Here's how a man-in-the-middle attack works. It's really very much common sense, but I want to walk you through it. So imagine once again, for the 850th time this semester, Alice is trying to send a message to Bob, right? Alice is trying to send a message to Bob, and Eve is in the middle eavesdropping. And so Eve, in this case, she has a bunch of different goals. We talked about all of these goals way at the beginning of the semester. The goal that we're going to focus on today in particular is that she wants to substitute her own message for Alice's message. So she's not trying to corrupt Alice's message. She's kind of trying to impersonate Alice. That's basically what's going on here. What she can do is, okay, Alice and Bob are using a hash function. So Alice is going to send her message and her hash to Bob, except she's not, because Eve is eavesdropping in the middle, right? So she's going to intercept the message, and she's going to intercept the hash value. She's going to replace Alice's message with her own message, and she's going to replace Alice's hash value with her own hash value. And then she's going to send her own message and her own hash value to Bob. This works because there is no secret information in a hash function, right? Think back to SHA-1. Think back to that giant protocol that we talked through on Wednesday. There was no secret information there whatsoever. Everything was clearly laid out. You had all the constants, you had all the functions, you had all the protocols, you had the message. If we assume that Eve is sitting in the middle, she would have the message as well. There's no secret information that goes into a hash function. None whatsoever. So therefore, unless Eve tips her hand somehow or other, there is no reason that Bob would not be able to tell that the message came from Alice or Eve. He's not going to be able to tell who it came from, because everything in a hash function is totally and completely public. Okay? This is a problem. This is a problem with hash functions. We've got two different ways to solve it. We've got a bunch of different ways to solve it, but we'll talk about two different ways to solve it. One way to solve it is encrypting the messages, right? That's a possibility. If the messages are encrypted, then a man-in-the-middle attack won't work. Because, why? If I was in class, I would have you discuss this with each other, but we're not. So obviously, Eve does not have the secret key. She doesn't have the secret piece of information. She is not going to be able to decrypt Alice's message. So if the messages are encrypted, this isn't going to work. But if a hash function is used, then the attack will, then it'll work. And that's what we just talked about. So here's the problem, right? Encrypting messages is secure. That's great, but it's also kind of slow. Slow is not good. So encrypting messages is slow, but also secure. Hashing messages is fast. Remember, we needed ease of computation. Fast, but it's also not secure. So what we want is something that's kind of in between these two. We want something that has both of the good properties. So not quite as involved or slow as encrypting a message. So in other words, we want the fastness of a hash function. That's something that we want. We want the fastness of a hash function. But we also want something that's more secure than a hash function. And the fixed length output would be really nice to have also. So we kind of want the happy medium. We want something that lets us be faster than encrypting messages, but also has some of the good properties of a hash function, the fixed length output and the speed. So that's what we're going for. If you have video on, give me a thumbs up. That makes sense. That's what we're going for. Okay. All right. So the place we want to solve this is called message authentication codes, or MACs. These are basically hash functions with a secret piece of information. That's kind of the basic idea here. But they do have their own protocols. They do have their own requirements. So let me talk through some of these things. Here's the definition, technical definition. A message authentication code is a family of functions, H sub k. A family of functions. That sounds way more confusing than it actually is, I promise. It is a family of functions, H sub k. K is a secret key. Okay, so K is going to be the secret piece of information that we are also including when we are computing hash values. That gives us the security of encryption that we didn't have before. And so the different values of the secret key basically determine which function you are using. So with encryption, we had one function and the key changed. Technically, the way message authentication codes are technically defined is that the function changes with the key. So this is my, if you're reading my slides, not listening to me lecture doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever. Imagine blenders. What I want you to imagine is that there is an entire shelf of blenders up at the cryptography store, okay? And every blender has a different value of a secret key. So once Alice and Bob agree upon a secret key, what they do is go pull a blender off the shelf. They're pulling the same blender off the shelf based on the value of the secret key that they pick. So the family of functions is this whole shelf of blenders, and each of their insides are slightly different depending on what the key is. Okay, so in order to create, in order to implement a message authentication code, you pull a blender off the shelf, you throw your message in it. The key is kind of hardwired in the blender. You blend it up and you get your value back out. Does the blenders example make sense when I'm talking about family of functions? Does that help? Okay.
Yeah, is this like a blender shelf at Costco or like Pick and Save?
At the cryptography store.
If that makes any sense.
Which we need to
Right,
with
that's
a good name.
wise.
Yes. When I was in grad school, somebody said you have to have an elevator talk. Like you have to be able to describe your research in the 30 seconds that is going to take you to a ride in an elevator with somebody. And I'm like, how am I possibly supposed to do that? So blenders is what I came up with. If you ask me about my research and you're not a math person, I'll tell you blenders. Okay, for a message and a key, what we are creating is called a MAC value. It's called a MAC value. So it's the output of what you get when you pull the blender off the shelf and when you put the message in it. It is called the message authentication code, the MAC value. For hash functions, the output was called the hash, right? for message authentication codes, it's called the MAC value. Sometimes it's also called, I'm looking, I don't think I have this. Sometimes it's also called the authentication tag. That's another term that is used. Authentication tag or MAC value. These are interchangeable terms. Authentication tag or MAC value. Kirchhoff's principle applies to message authentication codes. Blast from the past, Kirchhoff's principle. So we have to assume that Eve knows how the blender works. There is no secrecy in the protocol. Protocol is not secret. No secrecy in the protocol, just in keeping the key private. Okay. Let's do a quick pause recording, come back.